And welcome in. It's the All-22. The Blue Devils coming off an impressive 38-17 win over Virginia to open league play. David Shumate alongside Dave Harding. And the man of the hour, Jamion Franklin, coming off a very impressive performance against the Cavaliers. A couple of tackles, a sack, a TFL, 2 PBUs. Doesn't really do it justice when you bat it down and they just give you a PBU. We've got to come up with a new category for that statistically. But it certainly was impressive what you guys were able to do on Saturday night. Let's start there. I mean, a world of difference a year makes. Last year in Charlottesville, everybody knows, disappointing loss, 48-0. You flash forward 1 year later, you beat them by 21. I imagine that had to feel pretty good.
Yeah, it felt great. You know, we've been saying it all year, like this is a different team. This is a different Duke football, and that's something we talked about all throughout the offseason, of how things were going to be different this year and how our culture is, finally starting to show.
One of the ways things, I think, are different, or how do you turn a cruise ship? It's like one little bit at a time, and it seems like in the culture shift and the ability for the defense specifically to be playing better, it's taken each person's 1/11th or their piece to improve. You specifically have talked some about different pieces that you focused on during the offseason to get to that point. Can you speak, and we'll get into that in a little bit, that more detail a little bit later, but I guess like the process for each individual on the team during this offseason to pick out what those things were, or were they pretty much chosen for you by the coaching staff of what each person can improve upon, I guess is what I'm getting into.
I think that a key thing was, the coaches can only do so much, so everybody has to buy in. And that's the great part about this team. Everybody knows what they need to do and what they need to work on, so everybody has to buy in order to accomplish it. But Coach Elko broke the offseason up into 4 quarters, and that was, simple for us. It started with spring ball, or it started with winter workouts when they first got here, and that was, it was a big culture shift for everybody. We went right into Feely's territory, and things got pretty real pretty fast. And then it went into spring ball, just getting the feel for the scheme and the coaches and how they coach. Then we go into summer, and the summer was even worse. So, and now here we are, in the season. So, or the camp. We went to camp, and then we got into the season.
Well, earlier in the week, Coach Elko kind of mentioned how a win against Virginia and the success, that 4-1 start so far, it kind of gives validation to the hard work that they asked you guys to put into. Did you get a sense there are some people kind of on the edge of like, oh, I'm bought into a point, and now that you're 4-1, are those people fully on board, or was everybody gung ho from the start?
I think that everything really came into fruition after the Temple win. I think that finally getting to play against somebody else, because we were beating up on each other for a long while, but finally getting to impose our will on somebody else, everybody started to realize that things are different this year. And then just progressing to going to Northwestern and coming out with a hard-fought win against a Big Ten team, people really started to, really invest more. And here we are at 4-1. And, guys, after that win, we kind of adapted the mindset that after we won our first Temple game, when we guys dumped water on Coach for winning his first game, and he was like, we're on to the next. And I think that everybody's developed that mentality. Like, we finally got an ACC game under our belt against a team who beat on us last year, but we're on to the next. Like, we talked about it for a little bit this morning, but everybody's ready for Georgia Tech now, and I think that that's really important for this team.
You mentioned David Feely. I feel like everybody we've talked to has brought him up. For you individually, take us through what your progression has been like. What's the biggest physical change you've seen in your body this year?
I think that overall my ability to play hard and sustain drives, it's what's really changed for me. And Coach Philly's been on me from the jump because he knows my potential and he knows what I'm capable of. So I think he made it his personal mission to be on my back all the time. And, he just was texting me earlier about something I need to take care of. So, credit to him. He's really got here to a group of guys who were struggling and got them to believe in themselves. And I think that's the biggest key as to why everybody's seeing a change, is because people are starting to have confidence in themselves that they never had before.
I want to hit on a couple things with the Virginia game before we start to look forward. You look at Brennan Armstrong's numbers, 19 of 37 through a pick, but then their rushing attack only averaged 3.7 yards a carry. I'm curious for defensive lineman, defensive tackle in particular, What do you take more pride in, shutting down the quarterback or stuff in the run game?
Oh, stuff in the run game. I've been saying it, since we started this. I don't have a pretty or sexy game. I'm a grinder, and I take it personal. When we went on the road against Northwestern, all I heard about was, will we be able to sustain and hold up and stop the run? And we went out there and we showed them what we were about, and I take pride in that every day, every week. My favorite practice of the week is Tuesdays because I know it's first and second down and short yardage. So, I think that it's important for both, but you have to earn the right to rush the passer. So if we're not stopping the run, then we won't get a chance to rush the passer. So I find that I take it as my personal mission and as a D-tackle on our defense to make sure that we can stop the run.
A lot of fans look at statistics to dictate who they think had a good game or not. Obviously, we're talking about some of the PBUs and the sack, but you mentioned the Northwestern game, and along the defensive line in particular, in the inside of the D-line, it gives me kind of a feeling of offensive line play. And stick with me here for a second in that there's really not a statistic that can truly tell you whether or not you had a good game. And it's more on like, did you disrupt? Did you achieve what you wanted to achieve? Would you agree with that? And that maybe there's a game where you don't have the pass breakups, you don't have the TFLs, but you had a heck of a game, even though maybe you didn't get somebody down.
Yeah, everybody wants to make production, and I don't think people really understand how hard that is being an interior guy.
Yeah.
But it's the little things, like you said, that don't show up on the stat sheet. Like Virginia was going to be one of those games for me, is what I thought. I thought I was just going to be knocking blocks back and, creating opportunities for Shaka and those other guys to come down and make the plays. And fortunate enough, I was able to contribute with a couple batted balls and eventually just came free for a sack. But, those are the kind of games that I live for. Like we watched a few plays today when we broke down the tape where I was knocking the guard into the pulling, the tight ends coming to spill our ends and stuff like that. And most people don't really notice that except for guys like us that really watch the film and see how plays develop. But, that's the kind of stuff that I live for. And, I like wrecking plays. Even if I don't get to make the play, I'm going to celebrate with our guys anyway.
You mentioned the batted balls. You got some key ones. I want to talk about the sack here in just a second. But it feels like you guys are always, when the ball bats up, I'm curious what drills you do in practice, because I saw there twinkle in your eye at one point. You thought you might have had a pick on one you had batted. Aeneas almost got one laying in the backfield. I know Dwayne's already gotten a touchdown this year, but it feels like you guys aren't just looking to bat it down. You're trying to get that turnover, too. What kind of drills are you guys doing in practice trying to get those balls?
Well, we have a ball disruption and a turnover circuit that we do in practice. And, that's our thing. Like, every time we get pushed in the pocket, mirror hand. Like, we get close to the quarterback in practice, we're not allowed to hit him, so we throw up a hand. And I actually got a pick the Northwestern week, I think. So from just running down the line and throwing my hand up, it actually landed right in my lap. And I get on Gavin every day for throwing me a pick because I feel like that's embarrassing that the nose guard gets a pick off of you. But, it's just something that we've developed. And, every time we get a chance, we're throwing our paw up. And it's been paying off for us. As you can see, there was a possession that Virginia almost threw the ball to us 3 times in a row. So I think that it's really paying off. All the drills we do and all the turnover stuff that we work on is starting to show up in games.
So is that – obviously there's a coaching point to that and getting your offhand or available hand up. But it seemed like against Virginia and Brennan Armstrong in particular, maybe there was an emphasis of keeping him in the pocket. Was there an element to that also? Yeah,
we know that he can spin the ball like no other, and we saw that last year. But I think it's underrated how well he can move, and he burnt us a couple times when he got outside of the pocket. So we had a lot of calls that enabled us to cage him. We call it we caged him in the pocket to make sure that we make things difficult for him and make him uncomfortable, because if he's just sitting back there spinning the ball, we were going to be in trouble because they had a lot of skill and they had a lot of size in their skill positions.
So as a D lineman, when you hear like that cage tactic, it's not a letdown, is it? I mean, it's still an opportunity to get after him, but I've always been curious of how that changes your rush tactic. You're not trying to completely blow up the middle, are you? Trying to just squeeze it down?
I mean, for guys like me, I don't get upset because I get to just bull people and kind of 2-gap and read it. If he wants to go this way, I got him here. If he wants to go outside, I got him there. But maybe RJ or somebody like that who's really like fluent and they can rush like crazy. But I don't get upset. I get to sit there and knock somebody back and then dictate and make them go where I want them to go in order to stop him from running in a certain gap. So I don't mind cage at all.
We've got a nice, peaceful conversation on here with the defensive lineman, former offensive lineman. How do you feel when you're talking about just bowling somebody off the ball?
Well, I see where this is going. You're going to bring up the sack, and that's where things get really sensitive, right?
Well, it really, in some respects, when you look back, ended the game because Virginia was down there trying to get a touchdown to get back within contact. You get that sack, it knocks them all the way back to where they're kind of in no man's land and have to kick a field goal instead of going for a touchdown. Take us through that play, what you saw there, because as you said, you were trying to contain Armstrong all night, but you finally had a chance to get him.
I think that first and foremost, it was a great decision from our coaches to make the adjustment to start running the games that we were running. So, kudos to Coach Smith and Coach Simpson for coordinating that. It really started to open up some opportunities. Earlier in that drive, I actually had one where we ran the similar defense, and I came around and I came free, but he let it go. He threw a fade, and I got a mirror hand up. So I knew that if we were to get a chance again that I could probably get free. But, Mike Reese just did a heck of a job getting down there, and he took 2 for 1. And we watched the play today because it's my first time actually watching it and breaking it down and not just looking at the dance that everybody was laughing about. And, he just did a good job taking 2 for 1. And Armstrong didn't see me, So I was looking at him the whole way because like we talked about his ability to run. I knew that I had to wrap wider than usual because he can escape outside. And I saw him pump fake, and he didn't see me, and that was just wraps from there.
I want you to take me back to 2017 because for those that don't know, you were recruited by Mike Elko at the time to go play at Notre Dame, ended up signing to go play up there. But I say it in the context of, you said this was your best game at Duke after the game. Mike Elko kind of agreed and talked about how happy he was for you. I remember when he got hired, you were one of the first guys on social media to say how excited you were that he was coming here. And he's talked this week about, obviously everyone is bought in on what you guys are doing. The evidence is there in the results. But he said that can't just be a coach-dictated thing. The players have to have a part in that as well. The captain certainly. But imagine you've been a big voice in that because you knew what kind of man this was that was coming in to lead this program. What's it like for you to have this come full circle? Imagine you didn't think when you left Notre Dame that you'd be with him ever again, and here you are playing for him.
Yeah, I spoke to this a little bit earlier about the first thing that I said when I finally saw him in person was, everything happens for a reason. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to play for him at ND. He left out for a good decision for his family to go coach at A&M, and nobody can fault him for that. But I was really excited. I got on the Zoom. We had an emergency Zoom because everybody was all over the place, and I think everybody saw Mike Elko pop up on the Zoom box, and everybody was like, "Whoa!" I was like, "Hey, we got our guy." And then after that, in our group meet, Jamion, what do you think about him? Jamion, what's your experience? So, I just told the guys to get ready because I know what he's about. He's a passionate guy that cares about his players and everybody in his program, and I knew that he was going to put us in the right position to win some games.
It seems like, and you hit on this a little bit earlier, but he and the rest of the staff have done a good job of maximizing what each person is capable of and making you aware of that. In your specific case, you've talked about trimming down. You've lost 20 pounds. You are more explosive than you've ever been, stronger. You talk about David Feely getting after you in the weight room. But is that something that you find to be unique to Coach Elko and his ability to connect? Like, were you oblivious to what you were capable of before, and it really takes a coach like him with his kind of insight to help you see that? Mm-hmm. Or is there kind of a mix of ways that you've gotten to this realization of, wow, look what I can be along the defensive line?
I think it's a combination. Ultimately, I always knew that I was a good player. I knew I was talented, but that's about it. I didn't really have the confidence that I had coming out of high school, and he was just kind of the guy that gave me that extra push. And it's like, hey, I've seen what you're capable of, and I know that you can do it again. So that was his mission. It was just an everyday thing about being on me about my weight and what I need to do in order to get to being that player that we all know that I'm capable of being. So I think it was a combination of him, me, Coach Simpson, and Coach Feely. Just a lot has went into getting to where I'm at now.
I'm curious because you guys have been pretty consistent through the first 5 games, whether you win or you lose, talking about building for the next one. And Coach Elko's talked a lot about the best teams he's been around get better every game throughout the year. So obviously an impressive start to league play, 21-point win. But how do you guys build upon that against a Georgia Tech team that certainly looks like they're ready to go after beating Pitt on the road?
Oh, yeah. I think that the biggest thing for us is we understand now, now that we're winning, that winning only gives you one thing, and that's you get the next opponent's best shot because you're coming off of a win. So, the goal is to go 1-0 every week, not just the previous week. And I think that the Kansas loss really opened our eyes, to what could happen if we get too lax and too, lazy after success. And we know that it's a consistent buy-in, and we got to keep doing the same things no matter how monotonous it gets. Coach Elko always talks about the monotony of football, and you can't get bored doing the right thing because it works. And I think that our process works, and I think that if we continue to do that, we'll be very happy with the results.
If you don't mind sharing with us, I want to get personal for a second because you have a calm demeanor about you, if I may say so, sitting here, and you have so much perspective. And I know it hasn't been easy the last few years, starting with your senior year in high school, with what happened with your dad, and now what your mom is going through. If you don't mind sharing with us kind of what you've been going through on a personal level, because I know it hasn't been easy the last several years.
Yeah, it's been pretty tough. I've been dealing with a lot of things mentally, starting from high school with my dad getting sick, and then unfortunately my mom getting diagnosed with breast cancer earlier this year. So it's been a lot, it's been a lot since I came out of high school, and, it's continued, but I've got a really good support system, and, Coach Elko has been great. Hap has been great, to give two names that have really supported me. But it's taken a village, I've been through this before, like I said, unfortunately, so I know what to expect, but it's different situations, different types of cancer, so it's never easy, and it's always tough to see the two strongest people that you've known in your life to go through something like this. But it's definitely motivation for me because I want to take care of my family any way possible. So anytime I'm out there and I'm able to play, I know that they're watching. I know that I can make them proud, and that'll ease some of the tension and some of the pain that they may be feeling.
And it's incredible to me. You turned it actually into an opportunity. You gave some of your stem cells to your dad because you were a match. I can't imagine. What is that like to be able to give back to someone who's given so much to you?
Oh, well, it's great. It was a really hard time for me, being a senior in high school and really having to grow up and be the man because my dad was, he was away getting treatment and, couldn't be there to help raise me and take care of my mom and my sister. So it was just an opportunity that I know that if it was me in that situation, he wouldn't hesitate. He'd give me an arm or a leg if I needed it. So, that's my guy. That's my rock since I've been a little kid. So it was no hesitation. When I found out I was a match, I was going to do it regardless of if he wanted me to or not.
How does, and you talked about kind of using football as an opportunity to give back to them and maybe as a distraction or an opportunity for them to cheer you on and to get behind you. But so much focus goes into the X's and O's and the overall execution and the technique to what football is, and not as much into the person that's out there playing it. How would you say football has impacted, outside of giving you an opportunity as an outlet for your parents, but that relationship with your family, and how has it maybe helped you during some of these more difficult times in your life to either stay on track or to give you specific opportunities that maybe you wouldn't have had?
I think that going through this prior, it helped me out a lot because I was 17, 18 years old when I experienced this the first time, and I did what anybody would do. I shut down completely. School became really tough. Working out became really tough because I just wanted to be there and, take care of my mom and my sister. But I think being an older guy now, being at 22 years old and having a support system here, of Duke and of my family and everything like that, and realizing what needs to go into what I need to get done so that I don't shut down, it's really changed. Like, I have a whole new perspective, and I know that I have resources that I can reach out to so I can take the right path in order to not fall behind.
I know the whole Duke community is praying for you and your family. If you don't mind, there's realities to this. It can be financially difficult when you go through something like that. I know you started a GoFundMe page. How can Duke fans that want to support and help out, how can they reach out and contribute?
Yeah, I have the GoFundMe linked in all of my socials, whether it be my Instagram or Twitter. I have it pinned on my Twitter. And, just a share and definitely prayers because it's been tough. It's not too far apart as far as time for them both getting sick. So things are tough. My mom obviously can't work. My dad has been trying to get back into work, but just the fact that my mom can't drive and, an accident happened when she was younger, so she fears to drive. So, he's just been home taking care of her. So, yeah, a share of the GoFundMe would help tremendously, but, just the prayers and the support that everybody, especially Duke, has been giving us has been great, and it's keeping them both in high spirits knowing that, Duke Nation's behind them.
Yeah, family. I think that's one thing we look at as football players, at least in my experience. You look at almost what you have to do as a job, and I think you've done a good job of showing us that there's a community behind it. In the Yo, you mentioned Hap. We've talked about Coach Feely, certainly Coach Elko. It's great to hear them come around you, your teammates. But, David, I think to your point, the whole Duke fan base has an opportunity beyond just cheering on the field. When you get a sack or a PBU, there's an opportunity to support beyond that, which is a great thing to keep in mind.
We'll definitely all, as you said, keep you in our thoughts and prayers and your family, and we'll get through this. I know it's been a difficult few years, but we'll certainly get through it. We're going to play a little game coming up in a little bit, but I think everyone wants to get to know you a little bit better, so we're going to do some rapid-fire questions. And we haven't talked about your position coach yet, so I thought it might be a good place to start there. Jess Simpson, here's a guy who's been a little bit everywhere. High school, NFL, collegiate level, obviously. What's it been like to work with him?
It's been great. He's a great guy, and he's a guy that has experience. He can really connect with us, and I think that's a thing that separates him, because he's developed young men from high school, and eventually, he ended up in the pros coaching, like I said, one of the best D tackles that's playing the game right now in Grady Jarrett. And I think that he just has so much words of wisdom and so much life lessons beyond football. But, when we get down to the X and O's, this guy knows what he's talking about, so everybody in the room shuts up and listens. But, he's been great to play for. I think a part of my success right now is him instilling the confidence in me and establishing my role and letting me know that I can really thrive in it, and comparing me to guys that he's coached, whether it be high school, at previous college spots, or even in the league, some of the stories he's telling me. So, it's been a great experience.
What freshman on the defense has impressed you the most through the early part of the season?
It's tough. I'd say either VJ or Chandler Rivers. Those guys both have tremendous effort when we practice, and their work ethics in the weight room is crazy. So I think that they have really bright futures, and they both impressed me very much.
No, you're from originally Maryland. We won't get into the Bills-Ravens game because I don't think anybody wants to.
Because you already got into it.
Yeah,
before we got on the podcast.
It's a great way for me to, start my day and get in the lift. I was in a bad mood all day.
Take it out on the weights.
Yeah.
But it's on the other side of the Chesapeake from Baltimore, right?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously there's some good seafood there, crab legs, whatever you want to. But what's your favorite seafood meal that you've had?
I'd say crab cakes are very good, but crab dip. I got to go with crab dip. You can have it with chips, pretzels, anything like that. We've had crab dip on mac and cheese, but crab dip is definitely, top tier.
Are you an Old Bay guy?
I love Old Bay.
Okay.
I got Old Bay hot sauce. I got the real spicy Old Bay. Trust me, man. I got all the seasonings.
Isn't that like a prerequisite for being from Maryland? You have to love Old Bay.
Did you say crab dip on mac and cheese?
Oh, yeah. It's like crab mac and cheese. I think
have you been there?
Jimmy's.
Jimmy's famous seafood?
Yeah.
I've been there.
Jimmy's.
I think they actually, their social media leans a little Carolina fan to me. So
yeah, well, I try not to look at that. They got good food, but unfortunately they have the wrong shade of blue that they support. But
if you got good crab dip, we'll overlook
it. We'll overlook it, until I leave. I won't give them good reviews. Just kidding.
Yeah, that's awesome. What about your favorite uniform combo?
My favorite uniform combo is definitely all black, or when we wear the black, white, black. So black helmet, white jersey, black pants. I like that combo as well.
All right, real quick sidebar here. Are you a believer in the uniform combo can have an impact on how you play a game?
Yeah, I think if you look good, you feel good, you play good.
Yeah.
I think that I'm a firm believer in that.
Did you have an opinion on that?
I wouldn't know. I never looked good. So
hey, I'm not the swaggiest
what the
either,
uniform combo is.
You guys are always on the road this weekend in Atlanta. Got a couple NFL venues to come. Just brings to mind. You have a favorite place to play on the road?
Not really. I think that I approach every team with the same mission, every place with the same mission. I will say that I did like the experience, the Virginia Tech. That was a good experience. But I haven't really found a venue that I've played at that I was like, wow, this is blowing me away.
Outside of being able to polish off some crab dip, do you have any hidden talents for us to be aware of?
No, I don't really have any hidden talents, unfortunately.
Shoemate's been good at getting some out of people.
Guy.
No juggling?
No, not very coordinated. despite being
Photographic
good
memory?
football. No.
I mean, to be able to drop 20 pounds, that's a talent. I'd like to
I'd
pick
say
up.
That's pretty
We
good.
need to take notes
That is
afterwards.
very
I can
hidden
help
from
some
me.
UFC guys cut weight if they need help.
I
Yeah.
can help with the other direction if anyone needs.
Exactly. It's a little easier.
Yeah, eating contest. I think
Yeah.
that's my hidden talent.
Yeah.
I know he said keep crab dip out of it, but I can put some food away.
Yeah.
I've seen some pretty good celebrations already this year. Maybe none better than Oben chasing Carter down the field on the touchdown with the windmills with both arms. But who's got the best dance move celebration on the defense?
I think that I stole the show.
I was hoping you'd say that.
I think that I think I'm winning by a long shot right now. So I mean, we'll
can't
see. I know
disagree.
Eli Panko's got some good dance moves, and I'm sure throughout the rest of the season, when he scores some more, you'll see. And I'll be sadly in the back of everybody's mind again. But you know, as long as I can get some more sacks, get some more dances, I'll keep the competition going.
Is the dance totally like an improvised thing, or do you have that thought out beforehand?
You know, I woke up in the morning and I was like, what would I do if I got a sack today? And when I popped up, because I was like, dang, I just got a sack, I was like, you know, I just got to do it, you know.
Yeah.
And I knew that Coach Simpson was probably going to get heat from Elko, but, you know, it's my second sack of my career. Like, I'll take it.
Got
you know?
it. Empty the
And it was
bucket,
quick. It was
man.
quick. I made sure the ref wasn't looking, and I got it out of the way and, you know, got to go line up for the field goal.
Absolutely. If you only had one word to describe your teammate up front, Dwayne Carter, what would it be?
Consistent. You know, he's a consistent guy. You know, he's the same guy every day. We call him Mr. Duke, and he leads us, you know, that way. And I'd say consistency is you're going to get the same Dwayne every day, no matter if he's feeling good or feeling bad.
You mentioned all your social media earlier. Do you have a favorite platform? What's your favorite social media platform?
I'd say Twitter. Twitter's my favorite. You know, Twitter has so many memes and so many good pages to follow. And, you know, it's just, you know, you throw up a quick thing and it can change your day.
What about game day superstitions to close this one out?
I don't really have a game day superstition other than I have to use the bathroom before I go out, or
It's a good call.
I'll feel full. I don't
Yeah.
like feeling full and heavy.
It's a crab dip will do that to you.
It'll do it.
Yeah.
And
All right.
pregame meal will do it too.
Yeah.
It is time for the highest rated portion of the program. We're going to play the password game. Dave gets nervous. You see him trying to lock up. He's got to make you feel comfortable.
Well, I have fans now like coming up to me, giving me a hard
Critiquing.
time. Yeah, I mean, I can't walk around campus without somebody saying, "You gave a 2-word clue the other day." I'm like, "Okay, just let me live."
Keep it on the straight and narrow. We're trying to get someone else to get 10 out of 10 like Jordan. We're trying to get some rep for the defense here. We've only got an
Yeah.
offensive player to go perfect.
Dang, Jordan.
There's 4 categories: food, Duke football, famous athletes, and college football mascots. So you're going to pick a number 1 through 4. We've done away with the Wheel of Destiny, at least for a week. Dave asked us to.
I
so
call it
we're-
the Wheel of Doom.
We're trying
Wheel
to
of Doom.
acquiesce. So you're going to pick a number 1 through 4, and that's going to determine your category. Remember, 1-word clues. You get 2 minutes. Try to get as many as you can out of 10. So give me, is your lucky number 1 through 4, or is it higher than that? Is it 55?
Yeah, it's got to be 55. No.
So you got 1 through 4. What do you got?
I'm gonna go 2.
2.
2, right down the middle, kind of.
We got a shot.
What do we got?
Duke football.
Okay. All right. This is the last category that earned 10, isn't
Yes.
it?
Earned 10.
Yeah.
So
You
all
got a
the
shot.
hints are related to Duke football.
All right.
Okay. Wow. This is
Most 1 word, but not necessarily 1 word. Could be 2 words.
yeah.
As the answers, not as the hint, depending on how Dave
Fully
plays
prepared
this
to
out.
blame him for everything I don't get.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you?
Sure.
No, I was actually asking
No,
Dave because he looks
gosh.
more nervous.
Well, the first one's rough. Okay. All right.
right.
We're going to give this a go.
2 minutes on the clock. Let it rip.
Chargers.
Chargers. Chris Rump.
Yes. There we go. All right. That's 1. Stadium.
Stadium. Wallace Wade.
There you go. All right. Head.
A pass.
All right. Oh, gosh. Receiver.
Receiver. Jalen Calhoun. Wide receiver. Pass.
Durham.
North Carolina. Durham, North Carolina. Dang, this is.
She might on this game here. with
Yeah,
these
this
clues.
is
Here, just go
hard.
past.
Don't forget you can
We're
pass.
Pass.
Pre-game. That's 1 word. Yeah.
Pregame walk.
Yes. The Blue Devil walk.
Blue
That
Devil.
counts.
That
Yeah.
counts, that
Pre-game
counts.
walk.
Yeah,
Yeah. Indoor.
Brooks.
Close.
Pascal?
Yes. Perfect. There we go.
He didn't have faith in you. He'd already
Yeah,
moved on.
I already moved on.
1 minute.
Be a shot.
Fumble.
Fumble recovery. Dwayne's touchdown.
That's you're on the idea.
What did he do?
Scoop and score.
There we go.
There you go.
Gotcha.
2.
2-point conversion. 2 Jalen Stinson.
There we go. That was it. Acronym.
Grind.
There we go.
I got in trouble if I didn't.
The first clue was head.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna go with guy.
Mike Elko.
There we go.
Head coach.
And then the first clue was receiver. I'm gonna go with quarterback.
Quarterback receiver. Is it Riley Leonard?
We'll pass.
Whoa.
The first clue was Durham. This one's gonna be nickname.
We'll see.
There we go.
10 seconds.
And then this back to the first one. It was receiver, quarterback, 8.
Jordan Moore.
There we
Let's
go.
go.
Baby, 10 for
Let's
10.
The defense is on the board.
Let's go.
The air horn sound. Here we go.
We're going to have to do like a playoff at the end of the year.
Gosh.
Which
Did
I'm
you
sure
give us
you'd
a
be
little
very
extra time?
excited about. Huh?
Did you?
No, it was
That
right
was
around
fair.
2
Perfect.
minutes.
Okay. I like it. Good work,
Let's
man.
go.
No, good work. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you guys.
A lot of fun and good luck the rest of the way. I do have one last question. Like
Yep.
when you know you've got that call on defense, and it worked once before, are you just licking your chops to say, okay, I'm going to go out and we got a chance to get a sack here?
I'd say, yeah. When I got Mike Reese in there, he does a great job of taking 2 for 1 and, opening up the gap for me to get free. So anytime we got that defense dialed up, I'm locked in.
Good to know. As an offensive lineman, you're always worried about those twists. And so I've always been curious to get to the other side. Like, because you never know. You're reacting completely as an O lineman. And the D linemen always know ahead of time, and I always figured they were teeing themselves up.
It's the greatest feeling in the world when you get a old lineman to duck forward and put his hands up.
Right up there with getting 10 for
swipe
10
them
on the
all
game.
line.
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks a lot.
All right, Jamie. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, guys.
And we got the crew back together, David Shoemate, Dave Harding, and John Roth. And fellas, I think everyone thought there was a chance the Blue Devils could start ACC playoff with a win. I don't know many people saw it being as dominant as it was on Saturday night. 38-17, another hot start, jumping out to a 21-0 lead. And John just kind of manhandled the Cavaliers all night.
Yeah, I think a couple of big takeaways from that. One was the hot start. Every time they've won this year, they've gotten off to a start like that, 20-0, 21-0, 24. It's been such a prevalent thing for them to get off to that good start, and so that was really a great thing right out of the box. But then also, I think one of the big things was the way they ran the football during the game. I mean, it just showed that they want to be a team that can run when they want to run, and that's what they did. I mean, 48 yards rushing, and what it really led to was a domination in time of possession of over 36 minutes, and where you saw it the most was that drive in the fourth quarter. They went 11 plays in over 7 minutes, and all those plays were runs, and they basically just took care of the clock in the fourth quarter and bled it out, so Virginia had absolutely no chance to get enough possessions to get back in the game at the end. So I thought that was huge, and then I think we also saw, to me, the defense – to me, it was their best game so far, considering the opponent, and just the fact that they did so many different things on defense. I mean, they had tackles for loss. They had passes broken up. They got stops. They had 2 huge possessions. The first 2 defensive possessions of the second half were both 3-and-outs after Virginia had ended the first half on a high with momentum. You don't want them to come out and score right away and make it a 1-score game, so 3-and-out, and then Duke scores, and then 3-and-out again. So I think the defense pretty much helped dictate the course of that game. So it's good to see that happen in an ACC game.
Yeah, I thought Duke dominated the whole game. And it's hard when you're calling the game to say that. And as a Duke fan, you're like, you just never really were ready to say Virginia was totally out of it. But then when you look back at the complete complexion of the game, I mean, they were physically dominant right out of the gate and really never let up. You talk about the defense getting it done in numerous ways. I just feel like Virginia over the years, the past 7 years, had been the team that was batting the balls down. Even with Daniel Jones. How many times did Daniel Jones – first of all, he threw most of his picks to Virginia.
That's right.
The ball was always on the ground. Duke was usually the lesser disciplined team. I mean, penalties played a huge factor in what Virginia was able to do on Saturday. And Duke didn't react to a lot of those personal fouls and other things. I mean, they were just – all around the better team that day. And it's been a while since you've been able to say that about Duke in a ACC game. And John mentioned the physicality, the running ability of the offense. I think turnover margin is something that we have to emphasize as we talk about the success of this team. But I think it's just so funny to see the change in perspective. I mean, this is personally as well, but definitely from the outside in. Nobody really thought Duke was going to win more than 3 games this year, and they've already eclipsed that mark. Mm-hmm. And you just said, okay, yeah, people felt like Duke had a chance in this game, but I think that's just fans in recency looking at what the Blue Devils had been doing, but coming into the year, there was no chance. And so for the Blue Devils to be 5 games in, sitting 4-1 with a win in ACC play over a team like Virginia that had been giving you so many fits for the past, decade, basically, certainly a great way to go.
You mentioned the turnover margin. It's up to +8 now after 2 consecutive games without turning it over. And for me, the drive that kind of typified the whole game and maybe what Mike Elko wants this team to be, when the Blue Devils had the game in hand 35-10 and Virginia's trying to find a way to get back into it, you take more than half of the fourth quarter clock on a drive where you march down and kick a field goal and you don't throw a single pass. And Virginia knows the run is coming and they can't stop it. And, you've been a part of some really good offensive lines. I can't imagine what that feeling is like when you know you're in complete control and just dictating the terms in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what you want to do. And we feel like, and I say we, the Blue Devils have been in that position certain times over the years, more recently, and have gotten a penalty that sets them back, and you're 2nd and 15 or 1st and 15, and you're forced to punt. And so the execution, but then the physicality, being able to dig defensive linemen out, get backs up to the 2nd and 3rd level to where they're able to make somebody miss. Really well done to eat that kind of clock, and that's against a defense, and they're a little bit different look right now. They've been 3-down predominant, a lot of 4-down looks this year that we haven't been able to run the ball well against over the years.
And really nobody has this year coming into that game. They've
True.
been giving up only like 2.5 yards per carry. And Duke also did that with 3 different running backs carrying the ball on that drive. So it wasn't just like you give it to the hot hand and he keeps going. I mean, they switched 3 different times during that drive. So excellent drive. That was the greatest drive of the game.
And Riley Leonard continues to be efficient, leading the ACC, 72% in terms of completing his passes. Here's another crazy stat. He's 4th in the league at 6.4 yards a carry. Tells you how timely his runs have been, but also tells you how good the offensive line has been, only giving up, I think it's 5 sacks on the year, because normally quarterbacks aren't in the running for yards per carry because they get dinged with all the lost yardage because of sacks. And we'll talk about Georgia Tech coming up in just a little bit, but going to become a weekly tradition, I think. Let's talk about the ACC in general. In the Atlantic, it certainly seems like Clemson took a big step towards cinching up that division. They've still got to go to Tallahassee, and Syracuse is floating out there, but impressive back-to-back wins over Wake Forest and NC State. So let's kind of tip over and talk about the Coastal a little bit. Blue Devils get it done against Virginia. It was a rough weekend for the Virginia schools as Virginia Tech fell over in Chapel Hill 41-10. And, John, you look around, Miami is going to get started in league play this weekend. We talk about the Hokies being 1-1. The Blue Devils are atop the standings with the win. Georgia Tech goes to Pittsburgh and pulls a shocker. They're now 1-1. And the defending champions, not just in the Coastal but in the ACC, are 0-1. What do you make of it so far?
I think it's really, really early, but it seems like that old phrase about the coastal chaos is coming into play already. I mean, yeah, Miami hasn't even started yet, and but everybody else, like Duke and Carolina, Duke at the top with 1-0. It's just crazy right now. But I want to mention one thing about the Atlantic, though. I agree, Clemson's probably in the driver's seat, but Syracuse is sitting there, and they still have everything in front of them. They still have all the opponents that are going to factor into this on their schedule. So they kind of have the ball in their court. If they can win games, who knows what they're going to do. But, yeah, Clemson is in the driver's seat there. But, yeah, Dave, Duke and Carolina being at the top of the ACC Coastal right now and setting up for a matchup a couple weeks down the road, it just seems like there's nothing you can really definitively say about that division right now.
No, not at all. And it's all about who's able to stack them. I don't get the feeling that anybody's going to sweep the Coastal. And there's so much talent there, but there's also been inconsistent play and strengths against weaknesses having to clash sometime together and see who's actually the weaker unit. It's just so many storylines. The big thing to me when you talk about Pittsburgh losing to Georgia Tech and what's happened in Atlanta the past week with Jeff Collins and the AD getting let go, they go on the road and find a way to beat, as you said, the reigning ACC champions. All that means is this week means so much more for Duke, and I am just like any other Duke supporter in that I'm looking not too far ahead, but you realize that pivotal number 6 for bowl eligibility is out there now within your sights. And how do you get there? And it's like, okay, you take care of business. And I'm not saying this is a gimme against Georgia Tech, but you do that. And I think what you were referencing a little bit, John, 2 schools currently sitting 1-0 in league play happen to be arch rivals. Duke happens to be hosting that game. And, oh, by the way, it just came out that it's a primetime game inside Brooks Field at Wallace Wade Stadium. There are a lot of things to look forward to, but the first one's got to be the Yellow Jackets.
Absolutely. And then also, if you want to play the if game, I think there would be so much more clarity if 2 things had happened. One, if Miami had been more impressive in their non-conference games, and if Pitt had been able to take care of business against Georgia Tech. I thought all along coming into the year that Pitt and Miami might be the 2 teams that would be the most likely to contend for the Coastal Division Championship. But those ifs didn't happen, so that to me is why it's just complete chaos.
Well, and like Pitt, you knew losing Kenny Pickett was going to be a challenge, but I think they've got challenges elsewhere. And Miami, okay, you lose to Middle Tennessee, rough one on the road at Texas A&M, some shaky play here and there, but they've still got a lot in front of them too, and they're incredibly talented, and they're just coming off of an open date with a Coastal Division foe heading down there in North Carolina. So it's like, get excited, but whoa Nelly at the same time.
And after being benched against Middle Tennessee State, Mario Cristobal's come out and said Van Dyke will start the game against North Carolina. So an open date for Miami. We'll see what they got fixed during the open date. You mentioned Georgia Tech. Obviously, a huge challenge for the Blue Devils this weekend in Atlanta. Looked like a different team than they had through the first 4 weeks of the season in beating Pittsburgh rather handily. I mean, I know Pittsburgh got a late touchdown to make it look a little more visually appealing on the scoreboard, 26-21. But Georgia Tech controlled that football game on both sides of the ball, created a bunch of turnovers in the second half. And here's you talked about the transition with Jeff Collins and Todd Stansbury being dismissed early last week. They put Brent Key in charge. Here's a guy who played at Georgia Tech in the late 90s, was a all-ACC type guy, a captain. He was visibly emotional after the game, after his team got a win, saying he believed in the guys, that they had this in them all along. It's impressive what they were able to do, because a lot of times when you see these in-season changes, you don't see them very often. You'll see them on Sunday. Well, this happened on a Monday, so really you have essentially 3 days to get ready before you got to travel. And, John, very impressive what he was able to do to rally the troops before they went on the road.
Absolutely, and I think we might have talked in some other contexts about, teams after a shakeup like that, you might see them more focused, more emotional, more able to be rallied just because of all the events of that particular week. And certainly, if that was part of it, he did a good job of playing a part of that and getting his team together. But, he kind of indicated also, like, he just thought everybody needed to get everybody on their whole program needed to get on the same page. They weren't on the same page previously, apparently, in his thoughts, and they certainly did that. And one of the ways they did that was running the ball. I mean, I know back in the day with Paul Johnson, that was what they did. But they've had different kind of scheme lately, and they had over, like Duke, they had over 200 yards rushing to help control Pitt in that contest, and one of the running backs over 157, Hall. So their running game kind of set the tone for them, just as Duke's did in its ACC win, I thought. And so I think it might be kind of interesting this week to see how the two running games are going to compare, and if either one can actually dictate the game through that.
And Dave, you look at the running game for Georgia Tech. It's not just Hall, the transfer from Louisville, though. He had an explosive game against Pitt over the weekend. I think it was 20 carries for 157 yards. Sims can really run at the quarterback. We've seen that for a couple years now, and sometimes the stats are deceiving. Officially, he's got 192, but they've had some sack issues in the passing game. He got 327 yards gained rushing the football. It's really a challenge for the defense, different from Kansas, but maybe even a little more athletic than what Duke saw in Brennan Armstrong.
Yeah, I think so. And I am talking with Jamie on, you could tell that's something that goes into the game plan, and they'll have to be ready for a player in Jeff Sims that's very tough and is a guy that I think has a lot of confidence in his athletic ability. Armstrong isn't really known as that athletic of a guy and just kind of finds his way into spots and chooses his moments really well. I do think he's tougher than people give him credit for, but Sims is like a true like racehorse style runner that can really get outside, make people miss, and they'll have to make sure that they've got him in their sights at all times on Saturday. That is for sure. No surprise, by the way, that they're running the ball when you got the offensive line coach, a former offensive lineman at Georgia Tech, now leading the way. They are definitely going to be a run-first, hard-hitting style, and I wouldn't be surprised. You mentioned the Paul Johnson era, the triple option type look, but try to control the game on the ground. Sims can throw it. He certainly can, but to use his ability in that zone read, get him outside with an option to run, and then choose your shots wisely, I think that's going to be their game plan going into the Duke game.
Yeah, Banacanda, the talented running back for Pittsburgh, got hurt in that game, so that certainly short-circuited some of what Pittsburgh wanted to do, but they didn't have much success running the football. Although at times this year Georgia Tech has given up some yardage on the ground, I think close to 189 yards a game. And, John, you touched on the Blue Devil rushing attack earlier. That's been so varied. Riley Leonard's done just enough when he's needed to, but Jalen Coleman, Jordan Waters, the running game, it feels like for Duke is going to have to be a factor because we talked about Duke taking care of the football and creating turnovers. This is a very opportunistic secondary for Georgia Tech that's come up with a bunch of takeaways. So it'll be interesting to see what the game plan is this week. Riley Leonard's been efficient. Is he called upon, or does Duke try to get it done on the ground?
Yeah, right. Because I thought a couple times in the Virginia game, more maybe called runs than we've seen before, him taking the option to run that maybe he hadn't done earlier in the year in a couple other games. But just the fact that he has that dimension to the contest certainly, I think, bodes well for Duke. But also, to me, just the fact that when we talk about Duke trying to be a physical team, I think that's where you see it, and that's where you try to really embrace it, as in the running game. As an offensive lineman, when you're told to go out and be physical, you're trying to set the tone for your running game. And if Duke's been challenged to be that every week by their coaches, particularly Coach Mike Elko, and you got to figure they're going to be challenged to be the more physical team again this week. And if they can do that, they can possibly control the line of scrimmage and set up that run game.
Dave, as we start to wrap this up and hearing John talk about the message from Mike Elko, one of the things I've been struck about with him, and every coach has their different style. He's certainly had times where he's gotten after the guys, but certain times he's supported them. But there's this kind of layer of authenticity that I find very interesting about him that, when the team plays well, he tells them they play well. He doesn't find something, artificial to come out and critique or things like that. And he also kind of lays out the challenge for them. And he told us earlier this week, the challenge this week is how do you handle playing well? How do you handle success? Certainly bounced back well from the loss to Kansas, but now you're coming off a 21-point win over a good Virginia team, and everyone's telling you how good you are. And, how difficult is that challenge? I mean, you're the one on this set who's played before, building upon a win versus, he said, sometimes when you win and you start to get comfortable, you can get a little lazy and then you can get got.
I think it's easier to build on a win than it is to overcome a loss. And it's great to have seen Duke overcome a loss on the road. one where you were building on 3 consecutive wins and things stop, to restart that. I think the confidence word is something that has been used so much around here. We heard Jamion talking about that. Confidence builds when you win games, and I don't get a sense that it's arrogance that's building. I don't get a sense that it's a cockiness or one where you feel like you've got all your work done, you could just kind of lean back and rest. This is a blue-collar style team. It starts at the top. I think Mike Elko's that way. You get a sense in talking to him. He's just like, yeah, we played well. Great. What do you want me to do about it? We're moving on to the next thing. And for us, that's sometimes challenging because we're trying to fill some content. And like, can we talk about the win, please? Please. But he's just so focused on doing what it takes to get back to that win. And I think it's clearly laid out to each player in the locker room what it requires. I just remember, like in 2013, we started to stack them. People are starting to talk about Duke. We start to get ranked. We're beating ranked opponents. I'm in class reading blogs and articles about us, and it makes you work even harder. At no point did it make me feel like we have arrived. Let's just go easy. There's more on the line when you're winning, because look at us. We're talking about a wide open Coastal Division, and if that doesn't get you hungry, I don't know what will. And I have a very good feeling that everybody in the locker room, just a few hundred yards away from us, feels the same way.
Hunger probably is the biggest word right there. I mean, it's hard to imagine thinking right now about too many Duke football players are going to be like overconfident because Duke's off to a 4-1 start. That was the first ACC win in 2 years. I mean, so there's plenty of things, plenty of history most of these guys have to kind of embody what Riley Leonard said after the game is we want to be confident but not overconfident, not cocky. And so when you have that much hunger, and we really haven't done that much in the ACC for a couple of years, there should be no room for getting satisfied with what you've done 1 week. I mean, you want to, like you say, you want to stack them up and be able to feel that way at the end of the year, not right now at the beginning of October.
Yeah, and it's always fun to see the team play in Atlanta because some of these guys come from the state of Georgia. I was talking to Nicky Dalmolin the other day. He's going to have 35, 40 folks there. Jalen Stinson from down the road in Opelika, Alabama. That's less than 2 hours away. So always a ton of guys from the Georgia area. They're going to have a lot of fans in the stands ready for this one. A 4 o'clock kick in Atlanta. Our pregame coverage on the radio is going to get underway at 3 o'clock. If you're looking for it on the television coverage, it's going to be on your regional sports network. Should be a fun one this weekend. Duke and Georgia Tech. Fellas, appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Looking forward
I can
to
already
it.
hear it. Let's
Now
go.
you're getting fired up.
Yeah, baby.
When you say it.
Talk to you guys next week.